how does Dick Morris see it? For more, we're pleased to be joined by the Newsmax TV political analyst and presidential strategist, who's also the New York Times best-selling author of Armageddon: How Trump Can Beat Hillary. So, Dick, we know the CNN poll shows Mr. Trump ahead. The latest two polls today mirror a very tight race, one from GW Battleground and the other from YouGov and The Economist. Mr. Trump behind by 2 points, each poll well within the margin of error. So really, this race is tied. Your take on the polling and where it's going to head?
Well, forgive the pun, JD, but I think because of these polls, Hillary is fit to be tied.
It's a good line, Dick. We'll let you get away with it, okay? And you know her mindset. You know this woman. What is she thinking tonight?
She's blown a 10-point lead over this month, and she's blown it largely by inactivity. Tonight presents real challenges to both candidates, and they're very different. Hillary's is to avoid seeming muscle-bound, to get beyond the realm of memos and specifics, and to try to really articulate a message, an affirmative message. Hillary has never made up her mind. Is she attacking Obama's record, or is she embracing it? Is she going to do a better job than he does, or continue his policies? She can't figure out if she's running for her own first term or for Obama's third term. Is the economy doing badly and we need Hillary to fix it? Or is the economy doing great and we need Hillary to continue it? She just doesn't seem to be able to resolve that.
But of course,
Trump, it's kind of like an English lesson for someone who just learned English. He's finally learned how to use the teleprompter, how to resist off-the-cuff comments that are taken out of context and get him into trouble. And he's settled down into a very dignified presidential campaign style, which is belying her accusations that he's a psychopath and worse. But now he's got to keep up that image in the face of questioning from Matt Lauer. And you know, because of NBC's bias, it's going to be tough questioning. And the question is whether Trump can resist becoming the Trump of old, of flinging accusations all over the place and denouncing everybody, and become the new Trump, the more presidential, the more sober, the more reasonable one. And we'll have to see. It's going to be a fascinating exposition.
And
but
perhaps,
let's remember one basic thing.
Yes, sir.
Donald Trump has only to prove that he's not crazy. Once he proves he's not dangerous, and he's not a psychopath, and he's not a maniac, Hillary has no arguments left.
All right, so it's calm, cool, and collected, but also earlier today at the Union League in Philadelphia, there was Mr. Trump at the podium. We are going to hear some pointed criticism at Mrs. Clinton's foreign policy, or lack thereof. Listen.
Unlike my opponent, my foreign policy will emphasize diplomacy, not destruction. Hillary Clinton's legacy in Iraq, Libya, Syria has produced only turmoil and suffering and death.
So, Dick, with that speech this morning, is it both inoculation for tonight and kind of like what you see at the movies, a preview of tonight's coming attraction for Mr. Trump?
Well, I think he did a good job. I did get the feeling that there was, watching him perform in Philadelphia today, I watched it live. It was a little bit like, watching a Thanksgiving Day parade with the floats half filled. There wasn't the usual strength and energy behind his delivery, but yet his words were very precise and very clear. And I think that he's doing a good job. Let's just remember that Hillary has gotten herself into a box where all Donald Trump has to do is appear normal, and Hillary's negatives will take care of the rest.
Well, we again return to the polling, and in the battleground state of Florida, this poll from Public Policy and Priorities, I believe, Triple P, a Democrat firm, and you need to see these numbers. In fact, Donald Trump is leading in the poll from the Democrat firm, albeit a 1-point lead. What does that portend for Mrs. Clinton in Florida?
Well, all over the country, Florida and the other battleground states. She has set a bar for Donald Trump that is so low that he can easily overcome it. As long as he doesn't ratify it by his own comments, her adjectives will just stand out there and seem ridiculous. If she says this guy is a buffoon, a demagogue, someone who doesn't know what he's talking about, an ignoramus, a racist, a sexist, a bully, and he comes on and he's none of those. He's just a dignified, rational person posing a very strong case against Hillary. All of her arguments fall apart. You take that new ad she has on where she says that he's likely to start a nuclear war. Well, if Trump goes through a debate and it's the last thing in the world that seems to be the case, you're not going to remain into that ad. You're going to just reject it. And Hillary's entire campaign, her whole convention, all of her advertising and every speech she's given is all dependent on Donald Trump screwing it up. And if he doesn't screw it up, Hillary's left high and dry.
Well, let's circle back to what I was talking about earlier and you touched on tonight, this Commander-in-Chief forum on NBC. You mentioned Matt Lauer and his lack of objectivity. I say NBC now stands for nobody but Clinton. So how does Mr. Trump resist the impulse to strike out, or is there a snappy rejoinder, a gentle nudge he can give that points out the obvious about the NBC lack of objectivity?
He mustn't do that. He's running against Hillary, not against NBC or Rosie O'Donnell or Megyn Kelly or any of a million other people. He's running against Hillary Clinton. And shots at other people just are off the charts. They're not relevant to the race. It is kind of unique, the box Hillary has gotten herself into. It shows what a terrible politician she is. On the one hand, she's self-created, self-inflicted, this whole email wound that needn't have existed in the first place if she just used a regular email system like everybody else. And on the other hand, her campaign has been a series of name-calling. And if Trump doesn't act the part, the name-calling falls flat.
And there is something else at work that you just touched on, the fact that her email scandal is inexorably linked with foreign policy and national security. So time and again, when Trump feels the temptation to strike out at Matt Lauer, he just needs to return to the scandal that is Hillary's email and pay for play at the State Department.
Yeah, Algeria wants $400 million worth of jet fighters that they negotiated in the U.S. They want our approval for the export. So they give $500,000, I'm sorry, not 400 million, $20 billion of jet fighters. So they give $400,000 to the Clinton Foundation, and magically they're released. The Sultan of Bahrain wants an interview with the Secretary of State. The State Department says no. They give $1 to $5 million to the Clinton Foundation, pledge $32 million to the Clinton Global Initiative, and 5 minutes later the appointment is granted. It's like ka-ching, the Secretary of State will see you now.
And you know Mrs. Clinton, you detail it in the book Armageddon. What is her state of mind going into this joint television appearance, this Commander-in-Chief forum? About 30 seconds, Dick.
I think she's in a rage. I think she's furious. I think she can't believe that this prize is about to be snatched from her. I think she believed more than anybody all of their hype and propaganda about how Trump couldn't possibly win. It was beyond the pale, and the Republicans nominated someone who couldn't win. And now she's watching it dribble away, and she's watching it dribble away through her own fault. She has to be absolutely out of her mind tonight.
It'll be interesting. We'll watch it and we'll see. Dick Morris, as always, we thank you for your time and your analysis. Dick, of course, the author of Armageddon, How Trump Can Beat Hillary. Hey, we would love to hear from you. Why don't you send your comments in to me at newsmaxtv.com/comments. You can also send those comments via Facebook and Twitter. Our handle on Twitter is at Newsmax Prime. Later in this program, the columnist for The Hill, Judy Kurtz. She's in the know. She'll let us know what's going on in Washington. And as Newsmax Prime continues, a never-Trumper says, no, not never. I'm going to vote for Mr. Trump. All that and more ahead.